Okay, so today we're going to talk about making bread. Now you can make my recipe or any recipe, but I know that when I started making bread, which was about 9 years ago, it was just really confusing. I was just wanting to make bread for my family. I felt like getting it from the whole wheat and grinding it and all that kind of stuff would just maybe be a little bit healthier than what we were getting at the store. So I wanted to give it a try, but I wanted to share some of the secrets and tips that I have that will hopefully make bread making easier for you. So for us, we do start from wheat kernels, or I think they're called wheat berries, and then I put them in my Nutri-Mill grinder. I'm not sure they make this one anymore. I know their most popular one now is the Harvest, where it grinds it up, puts it into flour just like you'd find at the grocery store, and then we'll get started from there. So I just used actually an old detergent cup because it makes it easy to just scoop it out and stick it in here, and I love reusing stuff that I already have. And for me, we have a family of 4 now. My oldest is in college, so we used to have 5. But I just fill it up to the top. I like having some whole wheat left over for cookies or pancakes or stuff like that. So while I'm grinding, I might as well grind a lot. One other tip, we use these white buckets with these lids that screw on and are airtight. So that helps keep your wheat bug-free. Then you turn on then you just turn it on, and for me, I tend to go about 2 p.m. With this thing, and then it just runs through the wheat. And while this is going, I like to make sure that I'm getting my other ingredients. Alright, so once this is all ready, it'll just be there. I just kind of tap the top to make sure there's no wheat or flour stuck to the top, so it's a little less messy when I pull it off. Now it's going to be really full, so when you pull it off, sometimes you get a little overspill. It might be smarter to do it in 2 batches with as much as I do, but it is what it is. And then there's just your wheat flour, all ready for you to cook with. Now I'm going to switch to my mixer to get going on the bread. Alright, here I am with my Bosch mixer. Now I used to use a KitchenAid mixer for a long time. That's what I used when I started making bread 9 years ago. We had a super small kitchen at that point in time, so that's what worked for us. But if you plan to make whole wheat bread in your KitchenAid, it will kill the molder. It's just not meant for 100% whole wheat bread to be kneaded in it frequently or in large quantities. You could probably make 1 batch, like 1 loaf, and be okay. But if you're wanting to do enough for a family, a KitchenAid is going to die. Mine did. And so, side note, if your KitchenAid is dying, you can unplug it, let it rest, and it'll usually come back to life. I think it is made to, at least the most recent ones, are made to turn off before it strips the gears. So that's a good thing, but at the same point, I have hand kneaded some dough, which I'm too lazy to do. I wouldn't make bread if I didn't have a mixer. So I'm here with my Bosch mixer. I have the Bosch Universal Mixer. I have a whole review about the KitchenAid versus the Bosch, about mixing and all that kind of stuff, not just the motor, that you can check it out. I'll leave the link below. But, so my recipe calls for 7 cups of whole wheat flour, then some Vital Wheat gluten, and then yeast, and then steaming hot water. So I'm gonna add all that. And then it does something called sponging, which means that the freshly ground wheat just kind of hangs out in the bowl with the water for about 10 minutes, where it just kind of takes in the water. I've heard that with freshly ground wheat, that's really good to do because it's kind of like stunned from the wheat grinding process, so it doesn't absorb water as well. And so if you use the sponging technique, it works a little bit better. So let's get started. Okay, now comes one of my favorite parts of the Bosch, is the lid, and it makes it so that even when you start your mixer, no flour jumps around the bowl or out of the bowl. And I just mix it to begin with on 1. Right now you're just trying to mix so that the ingredients get combined. You're not kneading right now, you're just combining, and that happens really quickly with the Bosch. You can even take out this little window to take inside. It looks good. So now it just sits and sponges for about 10 minutes. All right, while my bread sponges, I put a little towel over it so that it sleeps. And then we open it up. Now we're gonna add the other ingredients, which include salt, oil, honey, bottled lemon juice, and whole wheat flour. So let's get to it. One tip about the sweet in it, a lot of people you'd like to use honey, which of course honey's delicious, but I've read online that honey doesn't freeze as well. So and also I think honey's a pain. So we use brown sugar, and it's clearly super clumpy brown sugar. So some of this is just gonna be eyeballing, and you use a little bit more brown sugar than you would honey. And I can't notice a difference between the two of them. All right, once those other ingredients are in, you're just gonna mix it for about a minute until all that's kind of combined. All right, once that's well combined, you're gonna add the rest of the flour, and you're gonna do it kind of slowly so that it mixes in well in between each addition. So you're not just throwing in tons of flour at once, although that's what I always did with my KitchenAid. The Bosch probably could power through all of it and do just fine. I'm mixing this on 2. I'll probably increase the speed once we start to knead, but also because I have my camera right by it, I didn't want big poofs of flour on the camera. All right, now we've got all of our flour in there. I'm going to increase the speed probably to 3. And you can tell that if you've ever watched a KitchenAid, the Bosch kind of mixes in a different way. For me, I kind of like to watch the KitchenAid knead a little bit better. It's the way kind of it does by hand. I notice a lot of spinning with the Bosch, but it still does a good job. The bread tastes great. And it's normal for your bowl to flex and bend as it is kneading it. It's built to do that, so you hear kind of a creaky, crackety sound, and all that's totally normal. So what you're looking for is a super smooth bread dough, and usually that's about 2 minutes from when I added the flour. Okay, so here we are nearing about 2 minutes since I added that flour. If you look at the bread, you can tell that it's a little bit smoother. I don't really get the baby's bottom consistency of bread with the 100% whole wheat flour. So they say you can do the window test where you stretch it out and you should be able to see light before it tears. This one probably needs another minute or so, but if you can see that, you can see that there's light in between the dough before it tears. This bread, I think, still just needs another minute of mixing. All right, one of my other tips for making bread is to make sure you use a timer, just because it's easy to set a timer and kind of just let the dough mix once you know how long it needs to go. So let's take a look at this guy. He's looking a little bit smoother. Let's try the window test again. So the window test doesn't usually work for me all that well, but I used to be so afraid of over kneading my bread, and I think you definitely can, but I don't think you need to be as concerned as maybe you might think. Okay, so let's pull it out of the stove and I'll show you how it can form into loaves. All right, at this point in time, you're gonna wanna preheat your oven just for the proofing process, folks. So for me, I just hit it bake 350, and then I set it to just do it for 2 minutes, and then it'll automatically turn on, kind of like a time set bake, but then I don't have to remember to turn it off before it gets too hot. You're just looking to get your oven a little bit warm. All right, so we pulled off our Bosch. We've got our bread pans here. The oven's heating for the proofing stage, and you're just gonna wanna pull out your kneading hook. And this bread's gonna be heavy. This is 100% whole wheat, serious bread. So you're gonna have to use a little bit of muscle, which is good. I mean, I already worked out with Denise Austin this morning, which was something. All right, one of the things I like to do is use this bowl scraper, just because it's kind of hard to get it out all in one piece without getting some under my nails and all that kind of stuff. And so I just use that to get everything out of the bowl. Bread dough usually kind of stays together like putty, so it's not too bad. And then I also use the flat edge of this. It's not like so flat that you could hurt yourself, but it does help to cut it apart. When I worked at a bakery in college, we used a bench scraper, but I'm afraid it would mar my beautiful Formica countertop. So I just use this because it's safe and it does a fine job. And I have the link to this in my profile also. Oh, the oven's preheated. All right, I do Pam or kitchen spray my my pans every time I cook with them because I hate it when my bread sticks. And these pans are only used for making bread pretty much. And so anyway, I got them at like, I think they were 88 cents at Walmart, and they do a good job. So I still like them. All right, there is a trick to getting loaves in the pan that don't end up giant in the middle because my kids are taking school lunches. We don't want one end of the bread that is super tiny and one end that's big and puffy, even though those look really pretty. So for me, I kind of pull it into the middle, form it into a log, shove it in, and then I push it down so it's kind of just using my knuckles so it's about even in the pan. So let me show you that a little bit more close up. So you're gonna take your chunk of dough, and my dough, this guy's probably smaller than that guy, and they'll cook fine. It is what it is. And you press it into the middle so that you make a round, and then you just toss it in the pan. Use your knuckles to push it down. Okay, so there we go. We have our 4 loaves of bread and they're ready to go in the oven for the proofing stage. Okay, so here we are in the oven. If you put your hand in, it just feels a little bit warm. For me, I line up my bread like that. I feel like that helps the oven flow. I don't have like a fancy convection oven or anything like that. And then this just hangs out in the oven like that with a warm oven to help it rise for about 15 minutes. And then you're gonna cook it. I cook mine for about 35 minutes just to make sure that it's not raw in the middle. So I believe it's 350 after that. All right, one little other trick that I have is I'll hit bake 350 and your oven will be a little bit different. But then I put 35 minutes. And then I do the start time about 15 minutes from now. That way I don't have to come back to my oven and set it. And also it will just cook and then turn off when it's done. And it also beeps like forever. So it always reminds me to get it out of the oven because now that I'm done with this, I really try and clean up very quickly. The faster you clean your bowl, the easier it's gonna be because that dough turns into bread. And then just get everything put away so that when you pull them out, you're all done. You can go on with the rest of your day. Okay, so it's beeping and telling me that it's done. So you just pull them out. You can always check your bread with the thermometer. There's a temperature it's supposed to be under, but I don't do that just because I made it long enough. I kind of know. One thing you can do is tap on it. Make sure it sounds hollow. But the longer you make bread, the more you'll realize kind of when it's done or just kind of how many minutes you need to do. For me, it's 35. Because I do more loaves, I think on the recipe it says half an hour, but because I do more loaves, I do a little bit longer. All right, my last tip for it is how to get it out of the pan, and I got this from Deals to Meals. I just take a plastic, basic IKEA knife that I had when my kids were little. I just take that and run it around the pan because if you pull it out and it pulls a big chunk off of the bread with it, then the bread dries out a little bit easier. And that's no fun. So I wish you guys could smell it because it smells amazing. But I'm gonna toast up a slice with some butter and enjoy it right now. And if you guys have any questions, just ask me in the comments. Otherwise, I hope you enjoyed this video and I'll talk to you later. Thanks, bye.